What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Cantina Talk. What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So, AHSOKA Episode 5 came out last night, titled Shadow Warrior. I just have to say that my entire childhood was encapsulated in this episode, and Dave Filoni is an absolute genius. This made me want a live-action Clone Wars show more than ever. Dave Filoni needs to be doing all of Star Wars from now on, and I'm going to stick with that. This show's been incredible, and I cannot wait for Episode 6 next week. But without further ado, let's just get right into this breakdown. So the episode starts off with the normal opening, once again with the Lucasfilm logo, no changes with the coloring of the characters. Then we start off with shots of the forest on Cientos. And this concludes with shots leading up to the ruins area and up to the podium where we see the destroyed star map. The ghost lands in the ruins area and out comes Hera as she scans the area. Once the coast is clear, Jason and Chopper exit the ghost. Hera gets alerted that something is there due to rocks falling. Hera then walks over to the cliff where Ahsoka and Baylan were, and she sees Huyang sitting there with Sabine's helmet, and he says to Hera that, "I told them to stay together. They never listen." And Huyang says this very sadly while looking over the water holding Sabine's helmet. Jason and Chopper then approach towards Hera and Huyang. We get this wide shot, but with that we get the title card and the episode name, which is Shadow Warrior. After that, we go back to the world between worlds with Anakin and Ahsoka standing there on the bridge. Anakin tells Ahsoka in the scene that she lost and that it is time to finish her training. Ahsoka's very curious to what happened to Anakin and why he is here, but Anakin ends up making Ahsoka fight him one-on-one with their lightsabers. Although Ahsoka does not want to fight, but she ends up having to do so. We then cut back to Jason and Chopper looking at the water, and Hera and Huyang searching the area looking for things on their scanners. Carson Teva shows up and says that Senator Organa is covering for her and won't be able to cover her forever. It was really cool to hear that Leia still has some power within the Senate and is able to do these things, letting us know that she is still out there throughout the galaxy actively. While this is happening, Jason Syndulla can be seen in the background, and he seems to be hearing something with the waves. He tries to alert Hera, but she shoots him down at first, and then he persists and she comes over and listens. Hera also tells Carson to stop talking here, which I thought was pretty funny, while she goes ahead and takes a listen with Jason. Jason's able to hear something in the water. I'm not 100% sure if Hera was able to, but Jason, being force sensitive, was definitely able to hear Ahsoka and Anakin fighting in the world between worlds. For what that means, I'm not going to go that far into it in this video. I'm going to be making a separate video on that later this week, but for right now, I will say, Ahsoka was not dreaming, she was actually in the world between worlds. Jason alerts Hera with a smile on her face. She tells Carson to get the squadron up, and they're going to go look over the ocean. Carson isn't too sure why this is going to be happening, but Huyang tells him that Jason has abilities and that his father was a Jedi Knight by the name of Kanan Jarrus. We finally got a mention of Kanan in the show, and I was really glad to hear it. The Ghost and the X-Wings start up and fly ahead of Jason, and then we cut back to Ahsoka and Anakin fighting. While they're fighting, Anakin does the classic move behind the back, and then him and Ahsoka lock sabers. Ahsoka breaks the saber lock by kicking Anakin in the face, trying to tell Anakin that she's improved without him. Anakin then chuckles and then breaks the floor below her of the world between worlds, causing her to fall down through this mist. Halfway through, it transitions into the planet Teth, where we saw in the Clone Wars show Anakin and Ahsoka rescuing Jabba's son from the tower on the planet, and we are greeted by Clone Wars Ahsoka. Clone Wars Ahsoka is being played by the same actress who played young Gamora in Avengers Infinity War. I just have to say, I think she looks amazing as young Ahsoka and really fits the character, looking a lot like Rosario Dawson, which makes a whole lot of sense why they would need that for the world between worlds scene to intercut with this. We could see 2 to 3 Phase 1 clone troopers also run past her here before we get Anakin Skywalker and his Clone Wars armor. I was freaking out when I saw this. I made a prediction about this happening, and ever since the show was announced back in late 2019, early 2020, this is all I've wanted. The fact that we got it in the show is absolutely insane, and I never thought we would get it. Also, I just want to point out too, all the de-aging for Hayden Christensen is insane. It looks perfect. I understand where the budget went with the show, and it makes perfect sense. It's also great, once again, seeing Anakin in the Clone Wars armor. After they talk for a few seconds, Anakin calls her Snips again, and Ahsoka's confused on how she's here, why she is here, and what they are doing here. And Anakin tells Ahsoka that this is training. I just want to say too, this isn't like a dream sequence. There are 3 battles we see, which is Teth, the Battle of Ryloth, and Mandalore. So for me to explain what's happening is that Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds is watching her canon event take hold, but she's embodying her younger self, so when she stops and starts talking to Anakin, Nothing around them is actually real, besides just her and Anakin talking, which would be in the world between worlds, but it's made to look like an illusion/dream sequence that Ahsoka's having, which she isn't. Ahsoka tells Anakin that she doesn't understand, and Anakin tells her that not understanding is her problem. Ahsoka also is spotted here using her green saber, which I thought was really cool to see in live action. They both run straight into the battle, and as the dust settles, we're brought to the second battle of this dream sequence/world between worlds setting, which is on the planet Ryloth. We also saw this in Clone Wars, and it was really cool to get a callback to it. We see here that Ahsoka is feeling a lot of guilt and remorse for getting all of the clones that are under her command either killed or injured, and she doesn't want to keep having to do this. We also see in the background here some Twi'lek, as well as Phase 1 Captain Rex. We are not able to hear him at all, but we are able to see him, and it was really cool to see. We also see an ATTE here as well. This was the same piece of machinery that Rex and the clones were living on in Star Wars Rebels when we were reintroduced to them. Ahsoka is still in disbelief by all this, and she has a lot of regret for the loss of her men. Anakin confronts Ahsoka and says that when he was becoming a Jedi, it was about being a keeper of peace, but now it is about being a soldier. Ahsoka seemed really disillusioned with this line, and had said back to Anakin, when I have my own Padawan, all they're going to learn is war. Ahsoka seems to be getting very disillusioned here and doesn't agree with the ways of the Jedi during wartime. Anakin then tells Ahsoka that she just has to adjust to the times. Anakin also makes a joke out of this, and Ahsoka gets mad, asking Anakin how can he make a joke out of a situation like this. He then asks Ahsoka, do you want me to be more serious? And she says yes, and that she wants to stop all the fighting. Anakin then says to Ahsoka, then she will die. Then, an explosion happens in the background, and Anakin, Rex, and all the boys run into the battle. While they're running to the battle, we can see Anakin being lit with his blue saber, and then an explosion, and then him quickly turn into Darth Vader for a flash, and then switch back to Anakin with a red saber, and then finally back to just Anakin with this blue saber. With that too, we get a wide shot of everything going on around Ahsoka, which it was really cool to see this battle in live action. We go back to Seatos, and Jason radios to Hera that Chopper has picked something up on his scanners, and that they need to go lower. Carson Teva then says over the comm channel that they're already low in fuel and that they're going to be having to use their fuel reserves. Chopper tells Jason to tell Hera to go as low as possible, and then Hera tells Carson and the rest of the X-Wings to pan out and widen their search, getting as low to the water as possible. We also can see here in the cockpit a picture of Kanan Jarrus being played by Freddie Prinze Jr. on Hera's dash. I missed this in my last breakdown, and I'm deeply sorry for it. I honestly completely overlooked it, and that's my bad. Huyang is also with Hera here, and he learns that Hera's mission wasn't granted. Hera also asks Huyang what Ahsoka's master was like, and all he says back to her was just intense. Jason tells them to fly the Ghost as low as possible, and we get a shot of them doing that. That cuts right into the Siege of Mandalore. The last time we saw this was in Season 7 of the Clone Wars, where Ahsoka was on her way to go fight Darth Maul. We can see here that Ahsoka is cutting down Mandalorians, and some of you might be asking why Mando and Sabine are able to block against lightsaber attacks, but the Mandalorians here weren't able to. Well, that is because the Mandalorians' armor is a mix of Durasteel and not pure Beskar. So with that, only pure Beskar is able to stop lightsaber attacks, not a Durasteel mix of armor. The reason why this was like this was because Maul wanted it to be easier to kill his men if they tried to betray him. We can also see here some members of the 332nd Battalion with the Ahsoka Tano helmets, as well as Phase 2 Captain Rex, who's being played by Tamara Morrison. This was really cool to see, as well as to hear it being Tamara Morrison that was voicing him. It was really cool to see Phase 1 and Phase 2 Rex, and I did not think we were going to see either of them in this episode. With that, Rex and the boys run headfirst into the fight, while Ahsoka stays back, leaving her memory, and thus becoming to talk with her and Anakin when he appears. Anakin tells Ahsoka that he does not know this war, and we can also see here that he is wearing his Jedi robes from Revenge of the Sith. Ahsoka does the name drop of the Siege of Mandalore, and Anakin said that Ahsoka had done exceptionally well during this, and she is a warrior now, just like he had trained her to be. Anakin tells Ahsoka that she is everything that he is. The knowledge she has gained was from the knowledge that he had learned from his master and his master before him, and that she is part of the legacy. I believe this also was a subtle hint solidifying Ahsoka in the legacy of the prequel trilogy. Ahsoka rebuttals back with saying death and war, which isn't the case. Anakin tells Ahsoka that she is more because he is more. But Ahsoka says that Anakin is more, but he is also powerful and dangerous than anyone realized. Anakin gets upset with this and says back to beginning, pulling out his saber. When he does this, we can see that it is a red lightsaber color. Also, Anakin has Sith eyes here. He tells Ahsoka, "You have a choice, live or die." They start the fight, and Anakin and Ahsoka go back and forth, but Anakin grabs her arm and recreates the exact scene and the exact shot from Revenge of the Sith where he does the same thing to Obi-Wan. Ahsoka breaks out of the hold and Anakin kicks her through the smoke, and she ends up back in the world between worlds. Duel of the Fates starts playing, as well as Vader's breathing, and Anakin comes out of the smoke with the saber in hand. There's a lightning flash, and we get a quick glimpse of Vader, and with that, the cycle continues, and there's another flash of Anakin and Vader, and then lastly back to Anakin, with Anakin staying with the Sith eyes and the red saber. Anakin says to Ahsoka, with the mix of Darth Vader's voice, that she lacks conviction. They start the fight once again. Ahsoka seems to be struggling here, and Anakin has the upper hand. Once again, we can also see Anakin's Sith eyes, and he says to Ahsoka it is time to die, and he knocks her sabers out of her hand, leaving her defenseless. He goes to swing, but Ahsoka gets underneath him and grabs the saber from his hands and puts it to his neck. Looking at him, Ahsoka closes in, and for a second, we can see Ahsoka having Sith eyes, but she turns back to the light side, just like Luke had in Return of the Jedi, and she throws his saber away, saying she chooses to live. This is really cool to see also, because it instantly made me think back to Luke versus Vader in Palpatine's throne room in Return of the Jedi. Anakin steps back and looks down, and when he looks back up, his eyes are back to normal. Anakin says that there's hope for you yet, before disappearing. Ahsoka looks around, calling for him, but to no avail, and then the world between worlds starts to collapse. Everything around her starts turning to water, and fully engulfing her in it. Thus, I believe this is a way of purifying Ahsoka, turning her from Ahsoka the Grey to Ahsoka the White. We know Dave Filoni loves Gandalf and thinks that Ahsoka and Gandalf are a lot alike, so this is where I'm getting this from. We cut back to Seatos, and we can see that Ahsoka is in the water, and she's slowly descending into the darkness of it. But one of the X-Wing pilots comes down with a cable and grabs Ahsoka, bringing her to safety, and that is on the ramp of the Ghost. Ahsoka looks up to the sky and calls to Anakin, but to no avail. Next, Jason and Chopper see the Ghost along with the X-Wings return to the ruins area, thus meaning that Ahsoka is alive. We cut to Ahsoka's T6 shuttle where she is lying in her bed, and since her rescue, a full day has passed. We can see Ahsoka without her headdress on and wearing socks. I believe this is the first time we've seen socks in Star Wars, but it could be wrong. Andor might have beat us to it. Huyang brings Ahsoka a drink, and he tells her that without Jason, she would have been lost. Ahsoka seems to be in disbelief, and learns from Huyang that Sabine is nowhere to be found, and the star map is broken beyond repair. Ahsoka and Huyang then make a trip outside, and we can see that she has a white poncho draped over her hair. We can also see in the background that Jason and Chopper are playing, and Ahsoka starts to walk up to them. Jason runs over to Ahsoka and gives her a hug, and we see Ahsoka smiling, embracing him, and hugging him back. With this, Jason tells Ahsoka that he heard her, and he heard the saber clashes, and asks who she was fighting. Hera distracts him though, and asks Huyang to take him aboard the Jedi starship, and Huyang agrees, telling Jason that he'll show him the training room, and Jason asks if Huyang will train him. Huyang says no. Jason asks if Huyang knows how to make sabers. He says yes. Jason asks if he can teach him how to make one, and Huyang says no. I thought this was pretty funny, but at the same time, I really wish he would be trained. Ahsoka and Hera start talking, and Ahsoka asks where Sabine is. Hera doesn't have a clue, but Ahsoka takes the map of the galaxy and walks over to the podium and starts to use Force Psychometry, seeing if Sabine had left anything of use for her. While Ahsoka's using Force Psychometry, she's able to hear everything else happening during her fight with Balin, as well as when Ahsoka falls off the cliff and everything that transpired afterwards. She knows that Sabine left willingly and was alive at the time of her leaving Seatos. She tells Hera, and Hera gets excited knowing that Sabine's still alive, but she is worried. While this is happening, Carson Teva runs over and interrupts, telling Hera that the New Republic fleet has arrived. Hera then tells Ahsoka that she has to figure out how they're going to get to Ezra and Sabine, while Hera goes and deals with them. Ahsoka also looks at Sabine's helmet here, and I believe she's taking it with her. Ahsoka walks over to the podium and looks up and sees the Purrgil, with the smile on her face, knowing that this is how she is going to get to the new galaxy. Next, we cut to Hera and Carson Teva inside of the Ghost in the cockpit, where we see Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma once again in a hollow projection. She is telling her that her and Hera need to return to Coruscant at once to stand trial to see if Hera should be stripped of her rank and her duties as a general. Mon Mothma also tells Hera that she's going to need Ahsoka's testimony to aid her in this, since there's no proof of any Imperial remnants or Grand Admiral Thrawn ever being at this location. Then Ahsoka in her T6 shuttle, Carson and the X-Wing pilots and the X-Wings, and Hera and Jason and the Ghost all start leaving Seatos and heading up to upper atmosphere. There, we are greeted with Ahsoka in her white Jedi robes, thus giving us Ahsoka the White, and with that, we are able to start seeing the Purrgil. Ahsoka and Huyang start slowly flying through the school of Purrgil, and Jacen and Hera are also following them. The X-Wings are starting to leave the planet and go into space while this is happening. Jacen and Hera see the Purrgils and are in complete disbelief. Ahsoka and Huyang go through the school of Purrgil. Ahsoka exits the cockpit and goes out in the wing of her T6 like she had done in episode 3, and she walks out to the edge of the wing and tries to use beast control on a large Purrgil. We all know that Ahsoka has this due to Tales of the Jedi, where she did this to save herself as a baby. It is really cool seeing her use it in live action though, just like Grogu. Through using beast control, Ahsoka is able to communicate with the Purrgil and asks them to take her and Huyang to the new galaxy. While this is happening, Jacen and Hera are also watching from afar, and we could see just the sheer size of the Purrgil, which this one is huge. It was really cool to see the scale difference here. We could see Jacen watching Ahsoka reach out to the Purrgil with her arm looking enamored. This then cuts to the X-Wings exiting the planet with the New Republic fleet. Carson tries to stall, but to no avail. Eventually, he has to give in and starts telling him Hera's mission plan, due to him being threatened of being deranked. We cut back to the Purrgil with Jacen and Hera watching Ahsoka as she communicates with the Purrgil. Jacen asks Hera if they're going to find Ezra. Jacen tells Hera this is just like the story she told him, with Ezra and the Purrgil taking the bad guys away from Lothal. We cut back to Ahsoka as she stops talking to the Purrgil and walks over to the cockpit from the outside of her ship and taps on the glass, telling Huyang to enter its mouth. We then turn to the Purrgil and can see the big one opening its mouth. This is something straight out of Pinocchio. Ahsoka enters the cockpit as they slowly fly into its mouth, leaving enough room for the ship to fly in and land on its tongue. As the mouth closed, Huyang asks Ahsoka if they know where Ezra is, and she says they have no clue, with a smirk on her face. It is really cool to see Ahsoka kind of joking around with Huyang here, and being her fun and delightful self once again. We cut back to the New Republic fleet, and Hera radios in, telling them that they better move. Then we get the big reveal of all of the Purrgil leaving the planet Seatos and going through the New Republic fleet. They start taking evasive actions, and luckily no one was injured. We could see, in comparison to the fleet, just the massive size of these creatures. Ahsoka tells Hera that she promises that she's going to find them, and that being Ezra and Sabine. Hera says to Ahsoka that Jacen is too young to be traveling across galaxies anyway, so she's sorry that she cannot come with. We then cut back to more shots of the Purrgil going through the fleet, and Hera radios to Ahsoka, saying the Purrgil look like they're about to jump. This is indicated by the glowing of their tentacles, just like we had seen in Rebels, but this is updated, looking so much cooler than it did before. Hera tells Ahsoka, "May the Force be with you," right before they all jump to hyperspace. We could see through the teeth of the Purrgil in its mouth, the weight of going into lightspeed happens before they jump. This was a really cool effect, especially to see it through the cockpit and through the Purrgil's mouth as they all jump to hyperspace. We then get a cut to black ending the episode. I just have to say, this episode had so many parallels from Clone Wars to Rebels to Mandalorian to Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones, and also Return of the Jedi. I just have to say, Dave Filoni really knocked this episode out of the park, and I believe he needs to be doing all of Star Wars from now on. I'm really interested to hear what you guys all think about this episode. I had a blast watching it live with all of you guys there, and I cannot wait for next week. Really quickly, I would just like to say that this Sunday, episode 5 of Cantina Jargon will be releasing, and Joe and myself will be having a guest, and that is Tony, aka Star Wars Sith. I hope to see some of you all there. But without further ado, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and remember to get yourself some Cantina Talk merch. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and lastly, may the Force be with you all.